I've wanted to be an artist, like many people who are now artists, since for my whole life, really. And it was just basically loving to draw when I was a kid. That was the best times, was when I spent time just drawing. And it's funny, drawing is still my preferred medium. So yeah, I was also fortunate in that when I was in my early teens, my parents paid for some lessons which were for adults that I could participate in, so I was able to get some, I guess, somewhat advanced schooling in drawing that I wasn't getting in my high school or whatever. And I really, really enjoyed those times as well, and that sort of reinforced that this might be something I would like to do more. Then I got sort of distracted by other things as I got older and stuff, but eventually started university in other fields and was finding that wasn't really working, and returned to art, and really knew pretty much as soon as I started studying art again in university that this was it and this was what I wanted to do. So, and I ended up studying in Ottawa, doing a Bachelor of Fine Arts at Ottawa U. My work is abstract, so that's always a bit of a tough question. I have ideas of where my inspiration comes from. Sometimes I'm not even entirely sure, but I never really try to represent anything that exists in the world, but things that do exist in the world that do inspire me, I'm recognizing, are often the sort of banal details of nature. So things like water, sunlight reflecting off of waves or water, things like hiking through a forest and seeing the same detail, like a branch or a leaf that's repeated, a million times. I think these are images that I don't necessarily photograph and keep, but I retain in my memory. Also, I grew up in Saskatchewan, on the edge of Regina, so it's wide open prairie. And I do know that my childhood environment has been a big influence for me, just in the sense that I feel sort of calm. I live in a city right now, I live in Montreal, and there's buildings all around, but I do feel calm when I find myself in a field on occasion or at a shoreline. And I think that even though my drawings are filled with a lot of small detail, that I'm still sort of striving for this sense of clean, open space in my drawings that I feel when I'm outside of the city and in a natural setting. For this exhibition, I've used tracing paper and different kinds of ink that are usually diluted with water, different gouaches as well. Basically, some sort of runny pigment. That I use scientific pipettes to drip onto the tracing paper. And I'm very much interested in what happens to the paper and the pigment when they interact. And basically, the tracing paper will shrink and warp and sort of become almost bubbly where the ink goes. And so that will change the nature of the paper to an extent that when I add more ink or color, liquid, that it sort of wants to adhere to where the liquid has gone already. So that is something that directs the outcome of my work. What happens to this paper when it gets wet. Mm-hmm. And also what happens to the ink, because often the pigment will sort of settle in the grooves of the paper that exist already. I think it's just what this ink can do. I think that often what has happened with my materials is I had a friend who moved away at one point, an artist, who had a ton of art supplies she left me with. She was leaving the country, and I pretty much systematically worked through whatever she had there, just being like, oh, this is interesting, what does it do? And some of the stuff that she left behind, one of them was these FW inks, and it's just a brand, one of the many brands of acrylic inks. And I found that, that it was easier to work with these pre-mixed colors than have to make my own colors out of pigment and then water them down. That really, there's so many different colors that are already available at this point in time that, that it was just easy to work with what I had already. Yeah. I don't particularly like mixing my own colors. My drawing practice for the past 8 years or so, I have been very interested in my materials and their interactions. So using mylar and marker and what happens when I build up a lot of marker lines on mylar, it sort of becomes almost reflective. So materials are a big influence. In fact, that would get back to the previous question, where do I find my influence is also in my materials. I hope that they go away with questions. And I don't really know the nature of what these questions would be. I know that when I go to an exhibition that I've enjoyed, or sometimes not even enjoyed, I'm taking away questions as to for myself, what the intent of the artist was, whether what is maybe written or presented about the exhibition is working or not. But these are very much questions that are in my mind based on my own experience, having worked in art and studied art. Other people would have different questions. Maybe these questions would be, is this actually art? You know, that's not a bad question to ask. Or what makes this art? But yeah, or why am I liking something that looks so simple? Or would this be easy to reproduce? Or what was the artist thinking when they were making this? So I think just, I would hope that the visitors leave with a sense of curiosity about the work and about art in general.